Well, welcome to our Masters podcast at exactly 3:52 UAE time, bleary-eyed live here at Emirates Golf Club, where Bubba Watson has dramatically won the green jackets, beating Louis Oosthuizen on a playoff at the 10th hole, the second sudden death hole in the most unbelievable of climaxes. Of course, this podcast brought to you in association with Golf Digest, the #1 publication in the region. Robbie Greenfield, the editor of that magazine, and myself, Ben Jacobs, the editor of Sports Talk, giving you at least a semblance of credible reaction after this fantastic climax. But I only say a semblance, Robbie, because we're a little bit sleepy and some of the speech might be a little bit slurred. We might doze off ever so slightly during some of the, sorry about that, questions. We're going to try and take it in over the next 10 minutes or so. We'll, of course, be hearing from the winner and the runner-up as well. But first, your thoughts on what, once again, like last year, has been an exceptionally compelling opening major to the golf season.
It's been fantastic, Ben, and obviously this Masters didn't get off to the quickest start. The first 3 days were fairly uneventful. There weren't that many birdies flying in. There were tough conditions. And then Sunday, as we've become so used to seeing at the Masters, we had it last year with that crazy finish that when Charles Schwartzel won. And I think, you know what, this may have just topped that. Everything from Louis Oosthuizen's albatross on the second, the first ever albatross on that hole, which was absolutely breathtaking as it just made its merry way across the green and just dropped stone dead into the cup. A phenomenal start to the final round, and capped off by, quite honestly, probably what goes down as the best shot I've ever seen to win a major championship. It was better even, perhaps, you could argue, than Phil Mickelson's heroic shot through the pine trees on the 13th 2 years ago to win the 2010 Masters. Just an incredible hooked wedge from Bubba Watson, a full 20 yards into the trees on the 10th after a really bad tee shot. And Louis Oosthuizen, of course, took the fairway wood, blocked it, had the advantage because he was going second and, didn't find the green and gave Bubba that window. But boy, did he take his opportunity there. Just a phenomenal shot to win his first major, and a very emotional scene at the end with all that's been going on in his life to capture the first green jacket at the age of 33.
Wow. Lining up to 6-inch it, why not? Bubba Watson is wearing a green jacket at Augusta. And this time, his name is Bubba.
We'll talk more about Bubba Watson in just a moment, but Louis had driven so well and consistently, and you mentioned that albatross which gave him the momentum, and really up until the closing stages when Watson really just found some form, took some risks, they all seemed to pay off and he forced a playoff. This looked almost certainly, didn't it, like back-to-back South African winners, with Louis Oosthuizen being presented the green jacket in Butler's cabin by his compatriot and close friend Charles Schwartzel, but it just wasn't to be.
No, it wasn't, and I think before the final round got underway, I think a lot of people, if we're being honest, had pretty much given this tournament to Phil Mickelson. You know, he was playing in the final group where traditionally the Masters winner comes from. He was playing with a very inexperienced guy, Peter Hansen, who hasn't been in this position before, although we have to acknowledge that he's a very good European Tour player, and he's a very underrated player in many ways, but this was new territory to him. Phil's been there, Phil's done that, he's won 3 green jackets, and I think we all kind of jumped to that conclusion that it would be Phil that would take this tournament by the scruff of the neck. It didn't happen. Louis with that stroke of genius on the second, a little bit of luck involved of course, but it was a phenomenal shot. And, on the fourth, it all fell apart for Phil. He came back admirably, but Louis just didn't give up all day. And to be honest with you, on the 12th, when Bubba bogeyed the 12th hole, I remember you and I sat here just a few hours ago and we'd pretty much written off his chances, but then 4 straight birdies from 13 to 16, just incredible, Schwartzel-esque, and just, it created this unbelievable finish where, neither of them blinked up 18. Louis holed a nerveless 6-foot putt to take it into a playoff, and then of course the first playoff hole, the 18th, they both parred. In fact, they both had putts from about the sort of 18-20 feet range. Bubba's was a bit closer actually, and Bubba had a putt of about 12 feet to win the Masters, which in all honesty was not a good effort. It drifted to the left side. Louis was very close, shaved the hole. And then, of course, the drama of the 10th hole.
Have you ever had an albatross? I'm not, of course, talking in the pet sense.
I certainly have not. That's something that I don't think I will ever be lucky enough to have. And I don't even need to ask you that question, Ben, because I think we both know the answer to that.
No comment. I am, of course, a highly accomplished golfer, though the closest I've come to an albatross is a triple bogey. Let's hear, though, from the runner-up. It was bad luck for Louis Oosthuizen, as Robbie mentioned, losing on a playoff. Here's what he had to say as he walked off the 10th green.
Yeah, it was a great day. We had a lot of fun. I had an opportunity there on the 10th. He had a bad tee shot. I should have put one way down the middle, but it's fine. He had an unbelievable shot there, and I played well. I can't really, it's not one that I felt like I played badly, so, great stuff to him. He deserves it.
So that was Louis Oosthuizen, runner-up. Now then on to the winner, Bubba Watson. It's quite a story, Robbie, isn't it? Not just because of the manner of golfer that he is, the risk-taker, the erratic shots, long putts that fly in unexpectedly, short putts that you'd imagine he should be knocking in with his eyes shut and he misses them. But on top of all of that, he has an affinity with Augusta. He went to uni in the area. He's basically the local lad come good at the age of, 33?
Well, I think Bubba's proved that, he is a big stage player. He had a great chance to win the 2010 US PGA. He's been in the shake-up in a few majors in the past, and even though he's not in that top 10, he is a big stage player. He seems to raise his game for the big occasion. And we looked to Phil Mickelson to really make his statement and win his 4th green jacket. But if you were going to have a guy to come out here, and we all know that Augusta favours the guys that take risks, the guys that will take shots on that other players wouldn't be confident or brave enough to take on. We've seen it time and time again. Phil Mickelson's a great exponent of that, of course. And Bubba has almost taken on that mantle. I mean, they even have the same visor hair, that sort of unruly sort of mop of hair that just curls upwards in a rather unkempt manner when they remove their visor. I think they're both lefties, both somewhat unorthodox, but Bubba takes it to an extreme, I think. You look at his swing, and there's all manner of ways you could describe his swing, and he's got immense power, obviously, but it's certainly not the most, certainly when you compare it to a pretty swing like Louis Oosthuizen's, it's not the most attractive thing out there, but it gets the job done, and you've got to marvel at this guy's creativity. There's just no shot he won't take on. It's phenomenal, and yes, there's a few question marks over his putting, but Bubba just let it all out there, and he was brave enough to hit the shots when it mattered.
Fair to say he's the first ever major winner to do so with a pink driver?
We were just saying that. He's probably gone into Paula Creamer's bag and stolen her driver and maybe replaced the shaft, because that might be a bit whippy for him. But I don't think there's ever been a Masters winner to have driven with such a fluorescent driver as that. But America now has a new hero, Ben.
But as you touched upon, this is massive for US golf, simply because not only have you got a winner of a major that's American, but in a Ryder Cup year, you've got somebody when on form that can galvanise the team. And this is surely going to be a player that will have a significant role to play ahead of Medina this September.
Oh, certainly, yeah. No, he showed in the last Ryder Cup where he put in a great performance that he's always going to be good in that format, and obviously he's well suited to match play, being a very aggressive player. But I think really for the Americans, it's now someone that they can kind of pin up as a poster boy. I think they were hoping Ricky Fowler would make his breakthrough, but obviously Bubba is not quite as young as the guys like Rory, McIlroy and Ricky Fowler. He's 33 obviously, so he's really entering the stage where golfers would typically hit their prime. And who knows where this might lead. He's barged open the door in such spectacular fashion. Are there any more majors in this guy? You indicated that you didn't think perhaps he had another major in it. I'm not sure.
I mean, I'll come out and say it again on record. I don't think he will ever win another major.
You were even more condescending than that, Ben, when you actually said it the first time. Which somewhat takes away from the glory of Bubba's special day, but...
Absolutely, but nonetheless, people will be waking up the next day, so we're a day after the special day, so we can be real, we can be hard-hitting. I feel at 33, he's too erratic. You're talking about a guy that is emotional on and off the course. You're talking about somebody that, by all accounts, has basically never had a golf lesson. He's never looked in any detail at his swing. What do you make of that? Is it a case of the raw talent in an almost Seve Ballesteros sort of style, actually helps him because he just plays with his gut and he happens to get it right? Or is this the kind of player that if he did ever look at a video of himself would first of all be horrified and then second of all, slowly but surely, would change his swing and improve?
I think what's great about Bubba is he is the absolute antithesis of where Tiger Woods is at right now. If you look at Tiger Woods on the golf course now, and I'm sure listeners of this podcast and keen golfers will have seen the sort of different moves that Tiger's been making with his swing guru. And, you know, fair play to him. That's always worked for him. He's always been very technical. Bubba is the last, technical thoughts are the last thing on Bubba's mind. I mean, if he looked at his swing and actually analysed it, I mean, the guy looks like he's going to fall over every time he hits a driver, but he lashes it with such power. And of course, he just gets up there and it's so natural. And I think that's what appeals to us, the mere mortals, the weekend hackers, who can kind of see a guy like that, who just walks up to the ball and just leathers it in a very unorthodox style, but it's very effective. And, you know, he has that wild shot in his locker, you know, and that's what kind of makes him compelling to watch. And I think it's nice to see. We've got a lot of exciting golfers now at the moment, and Rory McIlroy is obviously one, but you've got this breed of very technically flawless golfers. You know, you've got your Hunter Mayhans, your Nick Watneys, your Rory McIlroys, and you look at their swings, and they are picture postcard swings. You look at Bubba, and you almost want to sort of cringe every time you see him hit the ball, because it's not what you would describe as a thing of beauty, but, you know, Bubba is a character, and he's unique.
And he's got a great name as well.
He has an incredibly good name, and as someone mentioned on BBC, if Bubba wins, they're going to name his firstborn Bubba. So I hope that man sticks up to his promise. But I won't make that comment. Bubba Jacobs could be.
Could be. I'm not going to pledge on air to be naming my firstborn. If I'm lucky to have a firstborn, I'm not sure the female population
either
will
of us
be
can count on that, Ben, to be honest with you.
particularly keen on spawning a baby Bubba Jacobs. But there is a baby Bubba in existence, because Bubba, of course, has recently had a young son, and he'll look forward to spending some time, of course, with him. Let's though hear from the winner now when he was presented with the green jacket in Butler's cabin.
Bubba, just an amazing day out there. I don't even know where to start, but why don't you tell us about the shot you hit down on the 10th hole, the second shot?
I was there earlier today during regulation, so I was used to it. I knew what I was facing there. Had a good lie, had a gap where I had to hook it, I don't know, 40 yards or something, so I'm pretty good at hooking it, so I just hooked it up there, and somehow it nestled close to the hole.
A special Easter for you. I know how much it means to you to win on this day, and I also know how much these last few weeks have meant to you to be a father, to be in this position. How do you put in the words?
Can I add one? Well done. Thank you, sir.
I never got this far in my dreams to talk. It's a blessing. I mean, to go home to my new son, it's going to be fun.
Caleb and Angie, I know, we're on your mind all day today.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, how this day, just trying to keep your mind around where this competition's going. How did you do it? How did you keep hanging in there, throwing birdies at everybody?
After my playing partner, Louis, made a double eagle on 2, and he took the lead that quick. I three-putted the first hole. You know, I just kept my head down, knowing that that there was birdies on the back nine. You could make some eagles, you make some birdies. A couple hole-in-ones already on 16, so I knew that was a possibility. Just kept going, kept grinding it out, and somehow we went into a playoff, and I don't know what happened the rest. I just know I was crying a little bit later.
So there is Bubba Watson, the 2012 Masters champion, a bit of a dark horse as we mentioned. He finishing on 10 under par, level with Louis Oosthuizen, and then beating him on the second playoff hole, the 10th, after both made par on the 18th, and then Bubba Watson able to make a par compared to Louis Oosthuizen's bogey, despite being in trouble off the tee, and that was enough to claim the green jacket. That duo finishing 2 shots clear of a number of other intriguing players, Robbie, who all closed on 8 under, including Nearly Man Lee Westwood, Phil Mickelson, who was looking to win the Masters for a 4th time, Matt Kuchar, who, again, you feel has got an ugly swing, but he putted very well indeed. And Peter Hansen as well, another dark horse who, although he had a wobble in the middle of his round, did well to claw back and in the end put himself in contention.
And he's a very underrated player. He's a very good ball striker. I think we all kind of thought that he would fade away, and he didn't get off to a very confident start. It's very difficult. He shot 65 yesterday, or it's a Saturday I should say, to come out and can carry on that kind of form in the pressure of the final group with Phil Mickelson, who's won obviously 3 Masters titles. It must have been unbearable pressure for him, and he did look nervous. And it was almost like once he'd kind of thrown it away, he then loosened up, and we saw towards the end that he started playing some really good golf. I've got to be honest, Lee Westwood as well, it did kind of look like that. Now Lee was coming from back a little bit further in the pack, and a lot of people were saying, well, if Lee could putt, then he'd have won this thing by 4, but of course we know it doesn't really work out like that. Phil Mickelson made 2 treble bogeys. Now if you take those away from the card, yeah. Phil wins by 5 or whatever. So, I mean, you cut ifs and buts and all that. You know, it was almost like those guys turned it on when it was a little bit too late, and the guy that really stamped his authority early doors was Louis, and I think, you know, he did look like the likely winner for the duration of the day, and that was the turn-up, the fact that Bubba strung 4 birdies together and didn't flinch when it really came down to it. And obviously, of course, Matt Kuchar, I did make some disparaging remarks about his swing. I don't like it. You
said it was the swing of an axe murderer, didn't you?
I don't think I said it quite those words, but it's not the prettiest swing. Very industrial, you could say, but I mean, you know, he had his chances, and really, it was 16. He made that putt on 15, the eagle, which was a spectacular move from him to tie the lead briefly, and then he handed the initiative right back to Bubba and Louis, who were playing the 15th at the time with a very poor tee shot on 16, which left him pretty much no chance of getting up and down. So close but no cigar for Kuchar.
And just a final word on both Tiger and Rory. Of course, we all, and rightly so, in fairness, build it as a battle between those two, with obviously other people like Westwood and Donald potentially in the mix, but neither of them really quite got going. Let's start first of all with Tiger. The par 5s were really his undoing, weren't they? You expect him at Augusta to be playing them 3, 4, 5 under, and he really struggled to string 2 good shots together off the tee. As a result, unlike last year where he had good eagle opportunities on both the front and the back 9, one of which he executed I think on the 8th, and then one which he missed from close range on the 15th. This time around, he just never looked like exploiting those holes, and that was kind of his Achilles heel.
It was just one of his Achilles heels. I totally agree with you. I think his swing just didn't look there the entire week, even when he was making birdies, and he got off to a couple of good starts in his round, but he always looked like he was uncomfortable. His putting wasn't there, and you know, if we cast our minds 2 weeks ago to Bay Hill, everyone's declaring from the rooftops, Tiger's back, Tiger's back. He looked so in control in that tournament. He won it by 5, striking the ball brilliantly, and everyone thought this is the new era of Tiger Woods' domination. It's not going to be that simple, and I think we realise that now. That maybe a few people, including myself, because I thought that he would be a big factor here, as I'm sure you suspected as well, but it just never happened for him. And you know, it's almost like he slipped back into that old, getting far too technical, caught between 2 swings. You know, he just doesn't look happy on the course at the moment. He looks like he's paralysis by analysis is a phrase often used in golf, and it really does affect him right now. I really do believe that, you know, he's caught between. He said he had a Hank Haney backswing and a Sean Foley downswing. What does that mean? You know, try asking Bubba what that means. Bubba's like, I just hit the damn thing, you know. So Tiger, not impressed with his tantrums as well. You saw how gracefully Phil Mickelson handled his disaster hole and stayed for an hour afterwards signing autographs, and Tiger's behaviour and just his play was just a D- this week for him. It'd be interesting to see how he comes back from that. Rory, on the other hand, bizarre. To forge such a good position from a halfway stage, to get to 4 under, right on the shoulders of the leaders, just one back, and then to throw in a 77 out of nowhere when we were all pretty much certain that he'd buried those demons over the first 2 days and become such a changed player in terms of confidence and maturity, having won the US Open, having captured, albeit briefly, the world #1 ranking, the confidence that would have given him and the belief. And I don't think anyone saw that 77, that rather inexplicable front 9 slump of 43. Just none of us really saw that happen. And again, today's round, you know, it's very hard to explain, and you know, I'm sure Rory will know what's going on, and you know, he will know what he needs to work on. But I'd expect to see a pretty strong comeback from Rory, and I'd expect to see a pretty good defence of his US Open title in a couple of months' time.
Well, Robbie, the sun is starting to rise, so I think we will get some much-needed kit, because we're both out early, of course, practising so we can one day qualify for the Masters ourselves. So we'll be out here 6 a.m, should we meet? A little bit of breakfast and then a quick 18 holes?
Yeah, I think let's have a coffee at 6:30 and we'll be out on the range by 1:45.
That's Robbie Greenfield, the editor of Golf Digest, the region's #1 golf publication. Of course, you can follow Golf Digest on Facebook. The address, Robbie?
The address is Golf Digest ME.
And just a reminder too that Sports Talk, the region's only all-sports magazine, launches on May the 1st. We've got an all-expense-paid trip to the Ryder Cup in Chicago to give away, so not a bad prize at all. You can find out more about our exciting new publication. It's mesportstalk.com. That's mesportstalk.com. Do check that out. Thanks very much indeed to Robbie Greenfield, the editor of Golf Digest. From him and myself, Ben Jacobs, the editor of Sports Talk. We hope you've enjoyed our opening golf podcast. There'll be more to come between now and the end of the golf season.